What would you do if the person you trusted most became your worst nightmare? When a Chicago millionaire put his pregnant wife in a coma, the whole city called it an accident. The police looked the other way. The judges took his money. Everyone believed his lies. Everyone except one man, her father, a retired firefighter with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. This is the story of how an ordinary father went to war against a monster who thought he was untouchable. If you believe justice is worth fighting for, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me what you'd do in his situation, and subscribe, because stories like this need to be heard. This is a story about revenge, redemption, and a father's love that nothing could break. Let's begin. The phone rang at 2:17 in the morning. Warren Bennett had been a firefighter for 30 years. He knew the sound of emergency. He knew the difference between a wrong number and the call that changes everything. His hand reached for the receiver before his eyes fully opened. Muscle memory from decades of alarm bells. Mr. Bennett, the voice was young, female, strained. This is Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Your daughter Chloe has been admitted to our emergency room. You need to come right now. The world tilted. Warren's feet hit the cold floor. What happened? Is she okay? The baby. Sir, please just come. We're doing everything we can. The line went dead. Warren Bennett was 62 years old. He had pulled 47 people from burning buildings in his career. He had held children while they took their last breaths. He had walked through walls of flame to save strangers. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had ever terrified him like the silence after that call. He dressed in the dark, jeans, flannel shirt, work boots. His hands shook as he grabbed his keys. The drive from his modest Southside home to Northwestern Memorial usually took 25 minutes. Warren made it in 13. The emergency room doors slid open. Fluorescent lights blazed against white tiles. The smell of antiseptic hit him like a wall. A nurse looked up from her station, and her expression told Warren everything he needed to know before she spoke. Mr. Bennett, follow me, please. She led him down a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. Through small windows in the doors, Warren glimpsed other emergencies. A man clutching his chest, a child with a broken arm, normal tragedies, manageable disasters. Then he saw her, his Chloe, his baby girl, 28 years old and 7 months pregnant, lying motionless on a hospital bed. Machines beeped around her. Tubes ran from her arms. Her face was swollen beyond recognition. Purple bruises bloomed across her cheekbones. Her lip was split. Her left eye had disappeared beneath puffy tissue. Warren's knees buckled. A doctor caught his elbow. Mr. Bennett, I'm Dr. Grace Sullivan. I need you to listen carefully. Warren couldn't look away from his daughter. Who did this to her? Your daughter has severe cranial trauma, broken ribs, internal bleeding. We've induced a medical coma to reduce brain swelling. The baby is in distress. Heartbeat is unstable. Who did this? Warren's voice cracked like thunder. Dr. Sullivan's jaw tightened. Her husband brought her in. He claims she fell downstairs. Warren's hands curled into fists. Marcus Aldridge, the real estate tycoon who had swept Chloe off her feet 3 years ago, the millionaire philanthropist whose face smiled from billboards across Chicago, the man Warren had never trusted. That's a lie, Warren said quietly. 30 years of reading fire scenes taught him to recognize patterns. This wasn't a fall. This was rage. A younger man in paramedic uniform rushed through the doors. Owen, Warren's 25-year-old son. He took one look at Chloe and turned white. Dad, what happened? They called me from the ambulance station and said. Owen's voice died when he reached the bedside. Oh God, Chloe, no. The brothers had been close growing up. After their mother died of cancer 8 years ago, they became even closer. Owen had been the best man at Chloe's wedding. Even though he privately told Warren he thought Marcus was controlling, Dr. Sullivan continued her assessment. We're doing everything possible, but I need you to understand the severity. The next 48 hours are critical for both mother and baby. Warren finally found his voice. Where is he? Where's Marcus? The waiting room. He's been there since they arrived. The police want to talk to him. Warren moved toward the door. Owen grabbed his arm. Dad, don't. Not here. Not now. But Warren shrugged him off. He walked down that white corridor with purpose. The waiting room appeared ahead, and there, surrounded by police officers and looking perfectly composed, stood Marcus Aldridge, tall, handsome, wearing an expensive suit even at this hour. His hair was perfectly styled. His eyes were dry. He spoke to the officers with the confident tone of a man who owned the room. When Marcus saw Warren, his expression shifted into practiced concern. "Warren, thank God you're here. It was horrible. Chloe missed a step on the marble staircase. I tried to catch her, but..." Warren's fist connected with Marcus's jaw before anyone could react. The millionaire crashed backward into a chair. Police officers swarmed between them. Owen pulled Warren back while Marcus held his face, blood trickling from his lip. "You did this," Warren roared. "You beat my daughter." Marcus straightened slowly, his mask slipping for just a moment. Behind his eyes, Warren saw something cold and calculating. Then the mask returned. "Officers, you see what I'm dealing with. The man is unhinged. I love my wife. This was a terrible accident." The senior officer, a man named Pierce, stepped forward. "Mr. Bennett, you need to calm down. We're investigating this incident. If you assault Mr. Aldridge again, I'll have to arrest you." Warren's chest heaved. He stared at Marcus, memorizing every detail of that smug face. "I know what you are, and I'm going to make sure everyone else knows too." Marcus smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "I'm a husband praying for his wife's recovery. That's all anyone needs to know." 3 years earlier, Chloe Bennett had been a different person. She taught art at a community center in Bridgeport. She wore paint-stained jeans and kept her hair in a messy bun. She laughed easily and spent Sunday dinners at her father's house, telling stories about her students. Then Marcus Aldridge walked into her life. He had come to the community center for a publicity event. His company was donating $50,000 for arts programs. Photographers captured him cutting ribbons and shaking hands. When he saw Chloe teaching a watercolor class to elderly residents, he stopped. "You're talented," Marcus said, watching her demonstrate brush techniques. Chloe barely looked up. "Thanks. The program needs supplies more than compliments." He liked that. The challenge. Most people fawned over Marcus Aldridge. This woman in the paint-stained jeans treated him like anyone else. He asked her to dinner. She said no. He asked again. She said maybe. The third time, she said yes. Warren remembered the night Chloe first brought Marcus home. The millionaire arrived in a car that cost more than Warren's house. He wore a watch worth 6 months of Warren's pension. He spoke about investment portfolios and property development like other people discussed the weather. "So you're a firefighter?" Marcus asked during dinner, his tone suggesting the question was mere politeness. "Retired now," Warren said. 30 years with the department. Admirable. Public service is important." Marcus sipped his wine. "Though I've always believed the real change comes from economic development, building communities, creating jobs. That's how we save cities." Warren watched how Marcus touched Chloe's hand, how he corrected her pronunciation of the wine variety, how he suggested she might want to dress more formally for his upcoming gala. After Marcus left, Warren found Chloe in the kitchen. "You sure about this guy, sweetheart?" "Dad, he's amazing. He's successful, intelligent, cultured. Does he make you laugh?" Chloe paused. "That's not everything. It's something." But Chloe was in love, or what she thought was love. Marcus showered her with gifts, expensive dinners, trips to New York and Paris, a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. He paid off her student loans. He hired her as the director of his charitable foundation. The wedding was elaborate. 400 guests at the Drake Hotel. Chloe wore a designer gown that cost more than Warren made in a year. Marcus gave a speech about finding his soulmate. Warren walked his daughter down the aisle with a knot in his stomach. At the altar, he whispered, "It's not too late to change your mind." Chloe smiled. "Dad, I'm happy. Trust me." He wanted to. God, he wanted to. The first year seemed fine. Chloe called regularly. She visited less often. Marcus didn't like the South Side. Too dangerous. He said, too beneath them. But Chloe insisted on Sunday dinners with her father. Then small things changed. Chloe stopped wearing her favorite jeans. She dressed in clothes Marcus bought. She cut her hair the way Marcus preferred. She stopped teaching art classes because Marcus said his wife didn't need to work. "I'm taking care of her," Marcus told Warren during one tense dinner. "She deserves better than minimum wage at a community center." Warren watched his daughter go quiet. The light in her eyes dimmed. The second year, The visits became monthly instead of weekly. Chloe wore sunglasses indoors. She jumped when Marcus raised his voice. She apologized constantly for small things. "Everything okay at home?" Warren asked during one visit. "Perfect," Chloe said too quickly. "Marcus is just stressed with work." Chloe, "Dad, please, I'm fine." But Warren saw the bruise on her wrist when she reached for her coffee cup. Finger-shaped marks. The third year, Chloe announced she was pregnant. She smiled when she said it, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Marcus wanted a boy. Chloe was having a girl. "He's disappointed," she admitted quietly. "But he'll come around." The visits stopped almost completely. Marcus forbade Chloe from seeing her family. Warren was a bad influence. He said, "Too working class. Not suitable company for an Aldridge." Chloe called her father one night 3 weeks before the attack. Her voice was shaking. "Daddy, I'm scared. He's getting worse. The things he says about the baby. About me. Come home, no." Warren said immediately, "Right now, pack a bag and come home." "I can't. He'll find me. He has lawyers, connections. He said if I ever try to leave." Her voice broke into sobs. "Sweetheart, listen to me. Men like Marcus Aldridge, they're bullies. Bullies back down when you stand up to them. You don't understand. He owns this city. Dad, he owns the judge, the police, everyone. He doesn't own me. Come home." But Chloe never came. The next time Warren saw his daughter, she was unconscious in a hospital bed. The night of the attack began with glittering lights and false smiles. Marcus Aldridge hosted a charity gala at his penthouse. 200 guests in designer clothes, drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than most people made in a week. A string quartet played Vivaldi. Waiters circulated with hors d'oeuvres that were more art than food. Marcus stood at the center of it all, holding court. He spoke about his latest development project, a luxury high-rise that would transform the West Loop. He accepted praise with practiced humility. Cameras flashed as society reporters documented his generosity. Chloe moved through the crowd like a ghost. 7 months pregnant, wearing a dress Marcus had chosen, emerald green silk that cost $8,000. She smiled when guests spoke to her. She played her role perfectly. "Your husband is a remarkable man," a woman told her, some socialite whose name Chloe couldn't remember. "Yes," Chloe said, "Oi," the only safe answer. She felt the baby move inside her, a gentle kick against her ribs. Her daughter, the only pure thing left in Chloe's world. She rested her hand on her belly, a small gesture of protection. Marcus saw her from across the room. His eyes narrowed. He didn't like when Chloe called attention to her pregnancy. It reminded people she was having a girl, not the son he wanted. The evening wore on. Guests eventually departed, thanking Marcus for his hospitality. By midnight, the penthouse was empty except for the cleanup crew and one crystal glass that Chloe held. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Chicago's skyline. Lights sparkled across the darkness. Down there, in one of those modest neighborhoods, was her father's house. She imagined him sitting in his kitchen, drinking coffee, maybe thinking about her. She should have listened to him, should have run years ago. "You made me look like a fool tonight." Marcus's voice came from behind her, cold and sharp. Chloe turned carefully. "What I didn't, you kept touching your stomach, drawing attention to your condition." He poured himself a scotch, his third of the night. Catherine Brennan had asked why we weren't announcing the gender. I had to explain again that we're having a girl. "Marcus, please, it's just a baby. Our baby. It's not what I wanted." He drank. "I needed a son, an heir, someone to carry on the Aldridge name. Instead, I get a daughter." The words cut like glass. Chloe had heard variations of this speech before. But tonight, something in Marcus's tone was different, darker. "You're drunk," she said softly. "Let's just go to bed. Don't tell me what to do." "Oh?" His voice rose. "Do you know what I sacrificed for you? I married a nobody. A school teacher from the South Side, so we say. I elevated you, and this is how you repay me by failing to give me what I need." Chloe's hand went protectively to her belly. "Stop it, you're scaring me." "Good, you should be scared." Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides. He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her skin. "You think you can embarrass me? Make me look weak in front of my associates? I didn't do anything. Tears sprang to her eyes. Please, Marcus, you're hurting me. His grip tightened. You're pathetic, weak. I should have married someone worthy of me. He shoved her. Chloe stumbled backward, her hip hitting the marble countertop. Pain shot through her side. The baby kicked frantically, sensing distress. Stop, Chloe screamed. Think about the baby. But Marcus was beyond thinking. Rage twisted his handsome features into something monstrous. His fist connected with her face. The world exploded in white light. Chloe tasted blood. She tried to run, made it 3 steps before he caught her hair, yanking her backward. Her scalp burned. She clawed at his hands, desperate. That baby is ruining everything, Marcus roared. His fist struck her ribs. Once, twice. Chloe felt something crack inside her. She fell. The marble floor rushed up to meet her. She tried to twist, to protect her belly, but Marcus was there. His shoe connected with her stomach. The baby. No, please, not the baby. Marcus, please, she whispered. Blood filled her mouth. I'm sorry, I'll do better. Just stop. He stood over her, chest heaving, eyes wild. For a moment, Chloe saw clarity return to his face and recognition of what he had done, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Marcus straightened his tie, smoothed his hair, poured himself another scotch. Chloe lay on the floor, darkness creeping into her vision. Her hand rested on her belly. The baby wasn't moving anymore. Please, she breathed. The world faded. Marcus sipped his drink, staring out at the skyline. Then, almost casually, he pulled out his phone. First call his lawyer, second call 911. Yes, I need an ambulance. My wife fell down the stairs. She's pregnant. Please hurry. His voice was perfect. Concerned husband, terrified father-to-be. By the time paramedics arrived, Marcus Aldridge had his story straight. The intensive care unit hummed with machines keeping people alive. Warren sat in the chair beside Chloe's bed, holding her hand. It had been 12 hours since the attack. Dr. Sullivan had updated him 3 times. The news never got better. Severe traumatic brain injury, multiple fractured ribs, internal bleeding. The baby's heartbeat was unstable, dropping every few hours before medical intervention brought it back. Owen slumped against the wall, his face pale. He hadn't slept. Neither of them had. Dad, Owen said quietly, what if she doesn't wake up? Warren couldn't answer, because he had asked himself the same question 1,000 times since dawn. What if his daughter never opened her eyes again? What if his granddaughter died before taking her first breath? The door opened. Detective Randall Pierce entered, notepad in hand. He was tall, mid-40s, with the kind of face that suggested he had seen too much. Mr. Bennett, can I speak with you? Warren followed him into the hallway. Hospital staff rushed past. Someone coded down the hall. Normal chaos. We've completed our initial investigation, Pierce said. Mr. Aldridge's story checks out. The marble staircase in his penthouse is steep. Several witnesses confirm his wife had been tired that evening. These kinds of accidents happen. Warren stared at him. You can't be serious. The medical examiner found injuries consistent with a fall, or consistent with being beaten by her husband. Warren's voice rose. Look at her face. Detective, that's not from falling downstairs. Pierce's expression remained neutral. Mr. Aldridge is cooperating fully. He's devastated. He asked me to tell you he's praying for Chloe's recovery. He did this. I know he did. Do you have any evidence? Did your daughter tell you she was being abused? Warren hesitated. Chloe had called him scared, but she never explicitly said Marcus hit her. She was too afraid. She was terrified of him, Warren said. She wanted to leave but was scared. That's not evidence, sir. That's speculation. Pierce closed his notepad. Unless you have something concrete, my hands are tied. Marcus Aldridge is a prominent citizen. I can't arrest him based on a father's suspicions. Warren saw it then. The slight shift in Pierce's eyes. The careful neutrality. This detective had already decided, or been told to decide. How much did he pay you? Warren asked quietly. Pierce's face hardened. Excuse me. Marcus Aldridge, how much did he pay you to bury this? Mr. Bennett, I understand you're upset, but making accusations against a police officer is serious. I suggest you focus on your daughter's recovery and leave the investigation to professionals. Pierce walked away. Warren stood in that hospital corridor, rage and helplessness warring inside him. 30 years as a firefighter taught him about institutions, about how systems worked, about how power protected its own. Marcus Aldridge had power, money, connections. Warren had nothing but love for his daughter. A woman approached from the elevator, mid-30s, red hair pulled into a professional bun, carrying a briefcase. She looked familiar. "Mr. Bennett, I'm Rebecca Hayes. I was Chloe's college roommate." Warren remembered her. Rebecca had been at the wedding. She was a lawyer now, civil rights or something. "I saw the news," Rebecca said. "I know what really happened, and I want to help. Unless you have evidence, Detective Pierce says there's nothing to investigate." Rebecca's jaw tightened. "Pierce is on Aldridge's payroll. Half the department is, but I have resources. I can dig into Marcus's past, find patterns, build a case." Warren looked back through the window at Chloe, his baby girl, hooked to machines, fighting for her life. "What if it's too late?" he whispered. "Then we make sure she didn't suffer for nothing." Rebecca said, "We make sure Marcus Aldridge pays for what he did." 3 days later, Chloe remained in a coma. The baby's heartbeat stabilized slightly, but Dr. Sullivan warned they might need to perform an emergency delivery soon. Marcus appeared on television, giving an interview about his wife's tragic accident. He stood outside the penthouse, looking devastated. "I just want my wife and daughter to be okay," he told reporters. "I'm praying every moment. Chloe is the love of my life." The city ate it up. Social media flooded with sympathy for the millionaire whose wife had fallen. Colleagues sent flowers. The mayor issued a statement of support. Warren watched from the hospital cafeteria, his coffee going cold. Owen sat across from him, scrolling through his phone. "They're calling him a brave," Owen said, disgusted. "There are hashtags, prayers for the Aldridges. It's making me sick." Warren's phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "Found something. Meet me tonight." Maybe there was hope after all. Maybe justice could still win. Or maybe Warren Bennett was about to learn that sometimes the system is too broken to fix. And when the system fails, fathers have to find another way. Rebecca Hayes spread documents across the table in her small office. Warren and Owen leaned forward, studying the evidence. Police reports, medical records, photographs that made Warren's stomach turn. "Marcus Aldridge has done this before," Rebecca said. Her voice was steady, but anger simmered beneath. "His first serious girlfriend, 10 years ago, Amanda Fletcher, she was hospitalized 3 times in 6 months. Broken arm, concussion, fractured jaw." "Why didn't she press charges?" Owen asked. "She tried, but suddenly she had $50,000 and a signed agreement saying she wouldn't pursue legal action. Amanda moved to Oregon and never spoke publicly again." Rebecca pulled up another file. "His second girlfriend, 7 years ago, Julia Santos, she filed a restraining order. It was granted, then mysteriously dismissed 2 weeks later." Warren studied the pattern. "He pays them off or intimidates them into silence." "Exactly," Begoye going. "But Chloe is different. She's his wife, the mother of his child. This is bigger, messier. He can't just write a check and make it disappear." "He's trying," Owen said, gesturing to his phone where Marcus's latest interview was trending. "The whole city thinks he's a grieving husband." Rebecca smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then we change that narrative. I have a judge who will listen, Patricia Donovan. She's honest, which is rare. If we can get a restraining order, we can keep Marcus away from Chloe. And if we present enough evidence, we might get an arrest warrant." Over the next week, Rebecca built her case. She interviewed the paramedics who found Chloe. They confirmed the injuries didn't match a simple fall. She found the security guard from Marcus's building who heard screaming that night but was told to ignore it. Most importantly, she found the penthouse's building manager, a woman named Sandra who had cleaned Marcus's penthouse the morning after the attack. "There was blood everywhere," Sandra told them, her voice shaking. "Not near the stairs, in the living room, by the kitchen counter. I took photos before I cleaned. I thought something was wrong." She showed them her phone. Warren's hands trembled as he scrolled through the images. blood on marble floors, a broken crystal glass, Chloe's scarf torn and discarded. "This is it," Rebecca said. "This proves he's lying. It wasn't a fall. It was an assault." They filed for an emergency restraining order. Judge Donovan reviewed the evidence in chambers. Warren sat outside the courtroom, praying for the first time in years. The doors opened. Rebecca emerged, smiling. "We got it. Full restraining order. Marcus is banned from the hospital. If he violates it, he goes to jail immediately." Warren felt hope spark in his chest. Real hope. Better still, Detective Pierce was forced to reopen the investigation. The new evidence was too substantial to ignore. Warrant issued for Marcus Aldridge's arrest on charges of aggravated domestic battery and attempted murder. The news broke that evening. Marcus Aldridge, real estate millionaire, arrested at his penthouse. Camera crews captured him in handcuffs, shouting about his innocence. Warren watched from Chloe's hospital room, holding her hand. "We did it, sweetheart. He's going to pay." The baby kicked inside her, a small flutter of life. Dr. Sullivan said it was a good sign. Both mother and daughter were fighters. Chicago erupted in discussion. Half the city believed Marcus was innocent, a victim of a witch hunt. The other half demanded justice. Protests formed outside the courthouse. For 48 hours, Warren allowed himself to believe the nightmare was ending. Then reality crushed him. Marcus Aldridge walked out of jail on a $2 million bond. His lawyers filed immediate motions to suppress evidence. The security footage from his building mysteriously corrupted. Sandra, the building manager, suddenly couldn't remember what she had seen. The photos from her phone disappeared. Detective Pierce announced the evidence was inadmissible, technical violations in how it was gathered. Judge Donovan was recused from the case. A new judge took over, one who had received campaign contributions from Marcus's company. The restraining order was dismissed. All charges dropped. Marcus stood on the courthouse steps, his lawyers flanking him. "This witch hunt is over. I have been vindicated. Now I just want to focus on my wife's recovery." Warren watched the press conference from his truck, parked outside Rebecca's office. His phone rang. Rebecca's voice was defeated. "Warren, I'm so sorry. They buried us. Every piece of evidence, every witness, they made it disappear. What do we do now?" Silence, then quietly, "I don't know." That night, Warren returned to his house for the first time in a week. He needed clean clothes, needed to shower, needed to think. He smelled smoke before he saw the flames. His house was burning. Fire engulfed the front porch, climbing toward the roof. 30 years of memories going up in smoke. Warren ran inside, grabbing the fire extinguisher from his truck. But it was too late. The flames had spread too fast, too deliberately. Fire department arrived. They saved the structure, but everything inside was destroyed. Photo albums, Chloe's childhood drawings, his wife's wedding ring that he kept in a box by his bed. The fire marshal pulled Warren aside. "Accelerant used. Multiple points of origin. This was arson." Spray painted on the garage door, visible now in the floodlights. "Drop it or she dies." Warren stood in his driveway, watching firefighters douse his home. Exhaustion and rage competed for dominance. His phone buzzed. Owen, at the hospital. "Dad, they just tried to take Chloe off life support." Marcus showed up with new court papers saying he has medical power of attorney. "We stopped it, but barely." Warren closed his eyes. The system wasn't just broken, it was actively working against him. Marcus Aldridge had declared war, and Warren had no weapons left to fight with. Or did he? Owen Bennett had 3 broken ribs and a concussion. Warren sat in a different emergency room, watching doctors examine his son. It had been 2 days since the house fire, 2 days since Marcus escalated from legal manipulation to direct violence. Owen had been walking to his car after his paramedic shift. 3 men jumped him in the parking garage, baseball bats and fists. They didn't rob him. This wasn't about money. "Tell your father to back off," one attacker said before they disappeared into the night. Now Owen lay in a hospital bed, just floors below where Chloe fought for her life. "I'm okay, Dad," Owen said through swollen lips. "They could have killed me. They were sending a message." Warren's hands shook with rage. His children. Marcus was going after his children. Rebecca arrived an hour later. Her face was pale, her eyes red. "Warren, I need to tell you something." They found a quiet corner in the waiting room. Rebecca showed him official documents. I've been disbarred. Pending review. Marcus filed a complaint saying I fabricated evidence and harassed witnesses. The state bar suspended my license. That's insane. You followed every rule? He doesn't care about rules. Rebecca's voice cracked. My office was ransacked last night. Everything we had on Marcus, gone. My computer, my files, backup drives, all of it. Warren processed this. In less than 72 hours, Marcus had destroyed Warren's home, put Owen in the hospital, and removed their only legal advocate. He's systematic, Warren said, taking out threats one by one. He's winning. Rebecca wiped her eyes. I'm sorry, Warren. I thought I could help. But I'm powerless now. Warren looked through the window at his son. Then he thought about Chloe, still unconscious floors above. His family was being destroyed while Marcus Aldridge walked free. That night, Warren returned to what remained of his house. Insurance would cover rebuilding, but that didn't matter now. He sat on the front steps, staring at Chicago's skyline in the distance. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Bennett, a woman's voice, nervous. My name is Tasha Klein. I need to meet with you. It's about Marcus. When they met at a diner on the north side. Tasha was 29, beautiful in the way magazines considered beautiful. She wore expensive clothes and too much makeup covering a bruise on her cheek. I'm Marcus's mistress, she said without preamble. Was his mistress past tense? Warren said nothing. Let her talk. He's been with me for 2 years. Whole time he was married to your daughter. He promised he'd leave her, that we'd be together. Tasha laughed bitterly. I was stupid enough to believe him. Why are you telling me this? Because he hits me too. She pulled down her collar, revealing finger-shaped bruises on her neck. Last week, when things went bad for him in court, he blamed me, said I wasn't supportive enough. He strangled me until I passed out. Tasha reached into her purse. I recorded him, conversations where he talks about your daughter, about what he did to her, about paying off Detective Pierce, about the fire at your house, all of it. She placed a small USB drive on the table. He doesn't know I have this, but if I go public, he'll kill me. So I'm giving it to you. Someone needs to stop him. Warren picked up the drive. It was small, innocuous, but it might contain the evidence they needed. Why should I trust you? He asked. Because I'm terrified. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. I saw what he did to your daughter on the news, the lies he told, and I realize I'm next. If I don't get away from him, I'll end up in a hospital too, or worse. Warren took the drive. Where will you go? My sister lives in Arizona. I'm leaving tonight. Marcus doesn't know. Please, just stop him, before he kills someone. She left $30 on the table and walked out of Warren's life. Back in his hotel room, Warren plugged the drive into his laptop. Hours of recordings played. Marcus's voice, cold and calculating. Pierce took care of the evidence. Cost me 200 grand, but he's bought. The fire should scare Bennett off. If it doesn't, we'll hit him harder. I don't care about Chloe. Never did. She was useful until she got pregnant with the wrong gender. Warren listened to all of it. By dawn, he had a choice to make. He could take this to the police, try again with the system, hope that somehow this evidence wouldn't be buried like everything else. Or he could accept the truth. The system had failed. Detective Pierce was corrupt. The judges were bought. Marcus's money had created a shield that law couldn't penetrate. Warren thought about his 30 years as a firefighter, about the times he broke windows to save people, about the times he ignored official procedure because someone's life depended on speed over protocol. Sometimes, when the system fails, good people have to work outside it. Warren picked up his phone, called his old crew from the firehouse, men he trusted with his life, men who understood that some situations required direct action. I need help, he said when Captain Ross answered. The kind you can't talk about. Ross was silent for a moment. Then, what do you need, Chief? The war had entered a new phase, but Marcus thought he had won by breaking the system. He didn't realize he had pushed a father beyond caring about rules. And a father with nothing left to lose is more dangerous than any millionaire. Captain Daniel Ross had run Firehouse 17 for 20 years. He was 58 years old, built like a truck, with a handshake that could crack walnuts. He arrived at Warren's hotel with three other men. Warren recognized them all. Tommy Callahan, 45, still active duty. Marcus Williams, 51, retired but still strong. Kevin O'Brien, 49, who now ran a security consulting business. They sat around the small hotel room, drinking coffee Warren bought from the lobby machine. "Tell us what you need," Ross said. Warren explained everything. The attack, the corruption, the fire. Owen in the hospital. Marcus walking free while Chloe fought for her life. "I need evidence the courts can't ignore," Warren said, dumb. "The kind that if we dump it publicly, it becomes too big to bury." Kevin leaned forward. "I still have contacts in private investigation. We can surveil Marcus, document everything he does, who he meets, where he goes, what he says. I can access building security systems," Tommy added. "If Marcus uses any properties with fire safety systems, I have legitimate access for inspections." Marcus Williams, no relation to the firefighter despite sharing a name, had a different skill set. "I know people in media, not the corporate news that Marcus controls. Underground journalists who would love to expose a millionaire." Over the next 2 weeks, they built a parallel investigation, the kind that didn't wait for warrants or worry about admissibility in court. They documented Marcus's meetings with Detective Pierce, photographed cash exchanges, recorded conversations using directional microphones from rooftops. Kevin's team followed Marcus to a private club where he met with judges and politicians. They captured photos of envelopes being passed, money for loyalty. Tommy accessed security footage from Marcus's office building, time-stamped videos showing Marcus meeting with the men who attacked Owen. Clear evidence of conspiracy. Meanwhile, Warren split his time between planning and sitting with Chloe. Dr. Sullivan said her condition was stable but unchanged. The baby was holding on. They might need to deliver early if things got worse. "Talk to her," the doctor advised. "Sometimes patients can hear even in a coma." So Warren talked. He told Chloe about her childhood, about the time she fell off her bike and he patched her knee, about her first art show when she was 16, about how proud her mother would be of the woman she became. "I'm going to fix this, sweetheart," he whispered one night. "I know I wasn't there when you needed me, but I'm here now, and I'm going to make sure Marcus never hurts anyone again." Rebecca visited despite her suspended license. "I can't practice law, but I can still help. There's a federal prosecutor, someone Marcus doesn't own. If you get clean evidence, I can get it to her." "How do we know she's not bought too?" Warren asked. "Because she tried to investigate Marcus 3 years ago and got blocked by the Chicago police. She hates corruption, and she owes me a favor." The evidence compiled like pieces of a puzzle. Financial records showing Marcus's bribes, videos of his meetings, audio recordings from Tasha's USB drive, testimony from Sandra, the building manager, who agreed to talk again if the prosecutor could offer protection. They built a case that was airtight, irrefutable, the kind that even money couldn't dismiss. Then, on a cold November morning, they were ready. Marcus Williams called his journalist contacts. "I'm sending you the story of the year. A millionaire who beats women and buys the justice system. Everything documented. You run this tonight." Kevin's security team delivered packets to the FBI, the state attorney general, and 3 newspapers simultaneously. Rebecca hand-delivered evidence to the federal prosecutor, who immediately convened a grand jury. Warren watched the news that evening from Chloe's hospital room. The story broke everywhere at once. Not just local news, national coverage. Marcus Aldridge's face plastered across screens with the word "scandal" in bold letters. His corruption exposed, his violence documented, his empire crumbling in real time. By midnight, federal agents arrested Marcus at his penthouse. This time, no fancy lawyers could stop it. The evidence was overwhelming. Public pressure was enormous. Warren allowed himself to feel hope, real, genuine hope. Marcus Aldridge was in custody. The system was finally working. Justice was coming. Owen called from his apartment. "Dad, we did it! Holy hell! We actually did it!" Rebecca texted, "Federal prosecutor is pressing charges, multiple felonies. He's looking at 20 years minimum." Warren held Chloe's hand. "Did you hear that? Sweetheart, it's over. He can't hurt you anymore." The baby kicked. A strong kick. Dr. Sullivan, checking monitors, smiled. Her vitals are improving. I think she knows. For 72 hours, Warren celebrated. He slept in a real bed for the first time in weeks. He ate a meal that wasn't hospital cafeteria food. He visited Owen, whose ribs were healing. They were going to be okay. The nightmare was ending. Then the phone rang. Detective Pierce's voice. Urgent, Mr. William. Mr. Bennett, we have a situation. Marcus Aldrich had escaped during a prison transfer. Guards found unconscious. Transport van abandoned. Multiple officers under investigation for accepting bribes. The millionaire was gone, and he had nothing left to lose. The city held its breath. Marcus Aldrich, once the most prominent face in Chicago real estate, was now the most wanted. His photograph appeared on every news broadcast. Federal marshals coordinated with local police. The FBI joined the manhunt. But Marcus had spent years building an underground network. He had safe houses, cash reserves, fake identities, men loyal not because they believed in him, but because he paid them well. The escape was calculated, professional. Warren learned the details from Detective Pierce, who ironically was now trying to redeem himself by actually doing his job. The transport guards were rookies, Pierce admitted in Warren's hotel room. Someone paid them $50,000 each to look the other way. By the time we realized what happened, Marcus had a 6-hour head start. You think he left Chicago? Owen asked. No, Pierce shook his head. Men like Marcus don't run. They hide in plain sight. He's still here, planning something. Whoa, Warren's blood ran cold. He's coming for Chloe. We've doubled security at the hospital. Federal agents at every entrance. He won't get through. But Warren knew better. Marcus had already proven he could manipulate systems. Money opened every door. That night, Warren stayed in Chloe's room. He sat in the chair, a baseball bat leaning against the wall. If Marcus came, Warren would be ready. 3 days passed. No sign of Marcus. The city started to relax. Maybe he had fled. Maybe he was in Mexico or Canada. Then the other shoe dropped. Warren was arrested. Federal agents appeared at the hospital at dawn. They read Warren his rights while Dr. Sullivan and nurses watched in shock. Warren Bennett, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. What? Warren's mind reeled. I didn't. We have evidence you hired men to kill Marcus Aldrich. Recorded conversations. Wire transfers. Witness testimony. They took him in handcuffs. Owen ran after them, shouting, "This is insane. My father didn't do anything." Rebecca met them at the federal building. Her suspended license didn't matter anymore. She fought her way into the interrogation room. "This is a setup," she told the agents. "Obviously, Marcus Aldrich planted this evidence." The lead agent, a woman named Torres, slid documents across the table. These are wire transfers from Warren Bennett's bank account. $50,000 sent to a known hitman. Phone records showing calls between Bennett and the hitman. And testimony from the hitman himself, who says Bennett hired him to kill Aldrich. Warren stared at the evidence. It looked real. His account number, his phone number. But he had never made those calls or transfers. "It's fake," Warren said. "All of it. Then how do you explain your bank confirming the transfers came from your account? Marcus hacked it or paid someone to fake the records. He has the money and resources. Or you hired someone to kill the man who hurt your daughter, and now you're caught." Agent Torres wasn't hostile, just methodical. "Mr. Bennett, I understand your motivation, but we can't allow vigilante justice." Warren looked at Rebecca. "Can they hold me? The evidence is substantial, even if fabricated. Federal judge already denied bail. You're looking at weeks in custody minimum. While they investigate. Weeks. While Marcus ran free. While Chloe lay defenseless." Owen was outside when they transferred Warren to federal holding. "Dad, I'll watch Chloe every second. I promise she won't be alone." Warren's last view before the van doors closed was his son's face. Determined and scared. Federal holding was cleaner than county jail, but no less suffocating. Warren shared a cell with a man arrested for tax fraud. The man gave Warren space, sensing the firefighter wasn't someone to provoke. Days crawled past. Rebecca visited, bringing updates. The prosecutor knows something's wrong. The evidence is too convenient, but she needs time to prove it's fabricated. How much time are weeks, maybe more? Warren's hands clenched. I don't have weeks. Marcus is out there. On the fifth day of Warren's incarceration, his worst fear came true. Owen called Rebecca. His voice panicked. The hospital's been evacuated. Fire alarm. Everyone's moving patients to other facilities. They're transferring Chloe to a private clinic. What clinic? I don't know. The ambulance driver said orders came from her attending physician, but Dr. Sullivan is on vacation. Someone else authorized it. Rebecca's face went white. Owen, stop that ambulance. Whatever it takes, stop it. But it was too late. By the time hospital security checked the paperwork, the ambulance was gone. With Chloe inside, and the ambulance company had no record of that vehicle or those paramedics. Marcus had taken her. Rebecca Hayes had never broken someone out of federal custody before. She stood outside the facility, phone pressed to her ear, talking to Captain Ross. I need Warren out. Now, I don't care how. Rebecca, that's asking me to commit federal crimes. Marcus has Chloe. He's going to kill her. Warren is the only one who can stop him. Ross was silent. Then, give me 2 hours. What happened next would later be described as a perfect storm of fortunate coincidences by officials who needed to explain how a federal prisoner vanished. A fire alarm went off in the facility. Standard procedure dictated evacuation. During the chaos, Warren Bennett simply walked out with a group of detained accountants being transferred to court. A waiting car picked him up. Captain Ross drove. You've got maybe 6 hours before they lock down the city looking for you. Make it count. Warren's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your daughter is with me. Come to the old Riverside warehouse on Canal Street. Come alone. We finish this. It was obviously a trap. Warren went anyway. The warehouse district was abandoned, scheduled for demolition next month. Broken windows stared like hollow eyes. Graffiti covered the walls. This was where Chicago hid its forgotten things. Warren entered through a side door, carrying nothing but his phone. The interior was vast and empty. Moonlight streamed through holes in the roof. Hello, Warren. Marcus's voice echoed from somewhere in the darkness. Warren's eyes adjusted. He saw his daughter on a gurney in the center of the warehouse. Still unconscious, still pregnant, still hooked to a portable monitor that beeped steadily. Marcus stepped into the light. He looked different, disheveled. His expensive suit replaced by jeans and a dark jacket, his perfect hair messy, but his eyes still held that cold calculation. Just us now, Marcus said. No lawyers, no police, no system to hide behind. Let her go. Warren's voice was steady. Your problem is with me, not her. My problem is that you destroyed my life. Marcus circled the gurney. I had everything. Power, money, respect. Then you and your pathetic crusade took it all away. You took it away when you beat your pregnant wife. Marcus laughed, a sound devoid of humor. She deserved it. Weak, pathetic. Couldn't even give me a son. I should have left her years ago. Warren took a step forward. Marcus pulled a gun from his jacket. Stay there, go. The weapon was steady in Marcus's hand. I've thought about this a lot during my time in hiding. How to make you suffer the way I've suffered. Killing you is too easy. You'd be a martyr. He gestured to Chloe. But watching your daughter die, watching your grandchild die, that's real suffering. If you hurt her, I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. You can try. Marcus aimed the gun at Chloe. But you'll be too late. Warren moved. 30 years of rushing into burning buildings gave him speed people didn't expect from a man his age. He crossed the distance before Marcus could react, tackling him away from the gurney. The gun fired. The bullet went wild, sparking off metal somewhere in the darkness. They crashed to the concrete floor. Marcus was younger, but Warren was stronger. Years of carrying people from danger. Years of physical labor. He got his hands around Marcus's wrist, forcing the gun away. Marcus fought dirty. Knee to Warren's ribs, elbow to his face. But Warren held on. The gun clattered across the floor. They rolled, trading punches. Warren's knuckles split. Marcus's nose broke with a crunch. Blood slicked the concrete. You're nothing, Marcus spat. A retired firefighter. Nobody. Warren got on top, pinning Marcus down. I'm a father. That's more than you'll ever understand. He raised his fist. Could end it right here, one punch. Marcus's head against concrete. Then a voice, weak but clear, "Daddy." Warren froze, turned. Chloe's eyes were open, barely, confused and frightened, but awake. After weeks in a coma, his daughter was awake. "Chloe," Warren's voice cracked. That second of distraction was all Marcus needed. He grabbed a piece of rebar from the floor and swung. Pain exploded in Warren's shoulder. He fell sideways. Marcus scrambled for the gun, found it, aimed at Chloe. "She dies. Then you watch her die. Then I kill you." Warren tried to stand, but his shoulder screamed. He wouldn't make it in time. Then Chloe did something nobody expected. She pulled the IV from her arm and stabbed Marcus in the leg with the needle. Marcus screamed. The gun wavered. Warren surged forward, grabbing Marcus's arm. They struggled, the gun between them. A shot rang out. Both men froze. Blood spread across Marcus's expensive shirt. He looked down, surprised. The bullet had entered below his ribs. Angled upward, he collapsed. Warren kicked the gun away, then stumbled to Chloe. "I've got you. You're safe." Sirens wailed in the distance. Rebecca had called them the moment Warren's phone started transmitting from the warehouse. Police burst through the doors. Federal agents, paramedics. The warehouse flooded with people and lights. Dr. Sullivan rushed to Chloe's gurney. "Her vitals are stable. The baby's heartbeat is strong." My God, she woke up. Owen appeared, pushing through the crowd. "Chloe, Dad." The family reunited, bloody, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. Marcus Aldridge lay on the concrete, paramedics working on him. He would survive his wound, but he wouldn't escape again. Agent Torres approached Warren. "You escaped federal custody. Arrest me if you want," Warren said, "but I saved my daughter's life." Torres looked at the scene. At Chloe, weak but awake. At Marcus, being handcuffed to the gurney. At the gun that would have killed a mother and unborn child. "The security footage from the federal facility was corrupted," Torres said carefully. "We're not sure how you escaped. Might have been during the fire alarm confusion. These things happen." Warren understood. Sometimes justice required flexible interpretation. Marcus was taken into federal custody under maximum security. This time, no bribes would free him. The evidence was overwhelming. The public was watching. Warren rode in the ambulance with Chloe back to the hospital. She held his hand weakly. "Daddy," she whispered, "you came for me. Always, sweetheart. Always." 6 months later, spring returned to Chicago. Warren stood in the courthouse hallway wearing his best suit. It was the same suit he had worn to Chloe's wedding. He hoped this occasion would replace that memory with something better. The trial had lasted 3 months. Marcus Aldridge faced federal charges: kidnapping, assault, attempted murder, corruption, witness tampering. The evidence was overwhelming. Tasha's recordings, security footage, financial records, testimony from victims dating back 15 years. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Judge Patricia Donovan, back on the case after the corrupt judge was removed, handed down the sentence: life in prison without possibility of parole. Marcus showed no emotion. His expensive lawyers filed immediate appeals that everyone knew would fail. As they led him away, Marcus looked at Warren. No words. Just a final acknowledgement between two men whose lives had collided catastrophically. Warren felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just exhaustion and relief that it was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Warren made a brief statement. "This was never about revenge. It was about protecting my daughter and making sure a dangerous man couldn't hurt anyone else. I hope other families in similar situations know they're not alone. The system doesn't always work. But sometimes, if you fight hard enough, justice wins." Chloe stood beside him, holding his hand. She had given birth 2 months ago. A healthy baby girl, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect in every way. They named her Grace Warren Bennett. Chloe was still recovering, physically and emotionally. Therapy helped. Support groups helped. Her family helped most of all. She had filed for divorce the day after Marcus's arrest. It was finalized before the trial ended. She took back her maiden name, Chloe Bennett, the art teacher from Bridgeport who had lost herself and found her way back. Owen pushed the stroller as they walked to Warren's truck. The baby slept peacefully. Tiny fists curled under her chin. "She has Mom's nose," Owen said, peering at his niece. She has her mother's strength, Warren replied. They drove to Warren's rebuilt house. Insurance and donations from the community had restored it. Better than before. Actually, bigger kitchen. New porch. A nursery painted in soft yellows and greens. Rebecca was already there, setting up for dinner. She had gotten her law license reinstated after a formal investigation cleared her of Marcus's fabricated charges. Now she ran a nonprofit helping domestic violence survivors navigate the legal system. I invited a few others, Rebecca said, as more cars pulled up. Captain Ross and the firefighters who had helped, Dr. Sullivan, Agent Torres, Tasha, who had returned from Arizona to testify and was starting over in Chicago with Rebecca's help. Even Detective Pierce, who had cooperated fully with the federal investigation and was trying to make amends. They gathered around Warren's dining table. Food covered every surface. Laughter filled the rooms. Grace woke up and was passed from person to person, each adult marveling at her tiny fingers and bright eyes. Warren sat at the head of the table, watching his family and friends. Chloe sat beside him, nursing her daughter. Owen told stories that made everyone laugh. Rebecca debated legal theory with Agent Torres. Normal. This was normal. The kind of normal Warren had feared they'd never have again. After dinner, Warren carried Grace to the nursery. Chloe followed, settling into the rocking chair while he changed the baby's diaper with the careful precision of a grandfather learning new skills. I'm going back to teaching, Chloe said quietly. The community center offered me a position, part-time, so I can be with Grace. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm scared sometimes. Her voice trembled. Scared I'll see Marcus in every stranger. Scared I'll make the same mistakes. Warren handed her the baby. Chloe held Grace close, breathing in that unique newborn smell. You're not the same person who married him, Warren said. You're stronger, wiser, and you're not alone. You have people who love you. I know. Tears slipped down Chloe's cheeks. Happy tears this time. Thank you for never giving up on me. That's what fathers do. We protect our children, no matter what. Later, after guests left and Owen drove Chloe and Grace to their apartment, Warren stood on his porch. The city lights sparkled in the distance. Somewhere out there was the warehouse where he had almost lost everything. Somewhere was the courthouse where justice finally prevailed. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then curiosity won. The message read, "Thank you for saving my life. Marcus would have killed me next. You're a hero. Tasha." Warren smiled. Not a hero, just a father who refused to let evil win. He thought about the past year, the pain, the fear, the moments when everything seemed lost, but also the moments of unexpected grace. Rebecca's loyalty, Owen's courage, strangers who became allies, a system that eventually, finally, worked. And most importantly, a daughter who survived and a granddaughter who represented hope. Warren went inside. The house smelled like home again. Photos lined the walls, new memories replacing old. He picked up a frame from the mantel, a picture from last week. Chloe holding Grace, surrounded by Warren and Owen. Everyone smiling, everyone healing. Some stories don't have happy endings, but this one did. Not because everything was perfect. Chloe still had nightmares. Warren still woke up angry at what Marcus had done. The scars, physical and emotional, would fade but never fully disappear. But they had each other. They had survived. They had fought a millionaire's power and won. Warren placed the photo back on the mantel. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Therapy appointments, legal paperwork, the ongoing process of rebuilding. But tonight, his family was safe. His granddaughter slept peacefully. His daughter was free. That was enough. That was everything. He turned off the lights and headed to bed, ready for whatever came next. Because some fathers teach their daughters to ride bikes. Some teach them to be brave. Warren Bennett had taught his daughter something more valuable. That love never gives up. That family fights for each other. And that sometimes, when the system fails, ordinary people have to become extraordinary. Grace Warren Bennett would grow up knowing her grandfather saved her mother's life. She would grow up knowing that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they're just fathers who refuse to let their children face monsters alone. And in a city that had witnessed corruption, violence, and injustice, One small family proved that light can push back darkness. One father at a time, one fight at a time, one act of love at a time.